Hi, I'm Tim. Join me as I discuss an update to my 20-inch square foam flyer and why I think this might be an ideal RC trainer airplane for any new radio control model airplane pilot. Let's get to it. One thing that all RC pilots have in common is they begin at the beginning with a trainer aircraft. There's a wide number of trainer aircraft, plans, kits, ready to fly. They all share similar characteristics. They're typically high wing designs, straight wings, conventional configuration, big enough so you can see. And most importantly, they're supposed to be fairly easy to fly, but they're full-up RC aircraft. This is my update of the square foam flyer. Put the video up for the original one I did. It was a quick job. What I did on this is I made some improvements. Let me go through it. First of all, I saved about 1.5 ounces of weight because the original one I had to have lead fishing weights in the front to keep the CG 25% back 5 inches. What I did is I extended the motor out 1.5 inches so the weight of the motor was further forward, and I just needed to put one little weight inside the motor. Depending on your motor and arrangement, how heavy it is, you might even want to extend that out a little bit more. The other thing I did was the servos. The other ones were mounted on top of the wing. They were just kind of looked weird going up. I hot glued these in place and I built 2 layers of 3/16-inch foam underneath to hold those servos. Just a better appearance looking on the top. This allowed the nyrod to be a little bit lower and no more reinforcements on the side of the fin. Just make it look a little bit better overall. But the key thing is, as you can see in the flight video coming up, the plane handles extremely well. You'll see by hand launch in the very first flight, it just literally flew without any trim. Now what I found with these Elevon control models, you can see just a slight amount of up Elevon. I think that's good for all the initial flights. That seem to work fine. But the model flies extremely well. It speeds up, it slows down. And also, when you have a trainer model, you want to be able to keep track of the orientation of the model. Because of the nose sticking out, you can quickly see the front of the model. This vertical fin helps with orientation. It's just a very easy model to keep track of within the sky. The other thing is when you build it, you can build this in a day. The plans are in the description. You can download them. It's just 20 inches square foam board with this mounted here for the engine and the fin and the elevons. That's the whole model. So you can build it as a trainer very quickly. And the other thing is when we fly trainers, we're going to probably crash from time to time. When you have a full up trainer, you can cause damage that's going to take some time to fix. This model being about 9 ounces, even if you go in fairly fast, it's not going to do too much damage. And you can repair it pretty easily, and if there is a great deal of damage for whatever reason, just build a new one. It'll just take you a couple of hours. So I think this is a really something to think about for a trainer, RC model airplane for your club or somebody else. It'll scale up easily if you want to make the square bigger. Again, just using tape for the decoration, decals. It's really a very straightforward airplane to build, and I think it would be a very suitable trainer aircraft for you or anybody at your club. These are the electronics used for the square foam flyer, the trainer, the Park BL250 electric motor, electronic speed control, 8 to 10 amps I used, 2-cell lipo, the AR620 receiver from Spektrum, and 2 HS40 servos. This is the original Park flyer. You can see it's a kind of built-up construction for the servo placements, etc. I wanted to make it a little bit neater with this updated version of the trainer. I've cut out the foam to 20 inches by 20 inches. The Elevons are marked out with a pen and recommend a metal straight edge to cut them to make sure we have straight lines. The Elevons are cut out. You'll have to trim the edges to make sure they don't scrape against the side and bevel the front so they can go full down. The fin and side portions for the motor mount, really a pretty simple airplane, can be built in a day. Here the engine mount is in place. I put it about 1.5 inches forward. You can do it more to help achieve the center of gravity. Note the little cutout on the side for the motor wires to go inside the holding. It's important to trial fit the servos to make sure they move in the right direction before gluing everything in place. This is continuing with the completion. The control horns are in place. The fin is glued onto the fuselage. Notice that in this version I had the top glued on. You really need a hatch. It goes far enough forward that you have to have some way to look inside of it. This is the beginning of the packing tape decoration with some decals. Very easy to do with a flat modeling surface. I've completed the second version of my foam flyer, and truly the model goes together in a day. Plans are you can download them from the description. So some changes that I made from the original version just to help it a little bit. Didn't have any reinforcement on the fin by the base here. I think that'll be okay. The dimensions of the airplane, 20 inches by 20 inches, are the same. What I tried to do to save a little bit of weight, I had 4 lead fishing weights towards the front edge of the wing to maintain the center of gravity 25% of the way back, or 5 inches. To try to reduce the need for extra weight here, I built an extension of 1.5 inches on the nose to have the motor a little bit further forward to help with just keeping the weight further forward. Plus I put the servos much further forward. The servos don't weigh much, but they're pretty close to the leading edge. Also, for appearance's sake, I made the servos a little bit lower to the top and built these little holding devices underneath. So I think that looks a little bit better on the front. The center of gravity came out pretty good. It was right at the CG, but I wanted to add just a little bit more weight. So what I did was, you can't really see it, but I put 1 weight inside the front there, and that should be enough. And then this hatch is open to put the battery as far forward as necessary. So it's the same engine as before, motor, a couple degrees right thrust, couple degrees down thrust, and the weight of everything with the battery is 9 ounces. So let's plug it in, just take a look, see how the Elevons work. Put the Velcro for the battery, put that as far forward as needed. We'll put that in place. So the Elevon's up, down, left, right, and so that works out fine. One thing I want to point out that I learned on the earlier one from just some comments on the internet, I'll pass on to you because it's what I learned and what we can do better. Obviously there are 2 servos here for the Elevons, and you plug them for the AR620 receiver into channels 2 for the aileron and 3 for the elevator. But what happened, no matter what I would do with the sticks, I couldn't get them to operate correctly. And somebody mentioned just to swap out the 2 plugs, and that rectified the situation and worked perfectly. Another viewer in the comments gave an even better approach you could do on the transmitter here. So I'd like to show you how to do that. And what we do is we go down to, this is the DX6, we go to the system setup, which is the things that you do just once in a while for a model. And on aircraft type, under the system setup, you'll notice that I have wing Elevon. This sets up the radio to do Elevons. If I press that down, notice I turn the scroll wheel. Do you see how it goes to Elevon B? There's a big B up there. So the regular Elevon, Elevon B, that should fix the problem. If you have the case where they are not working properly, you can go to Elevon B, and that should work out. So that's a nice little feature that they put in. Apparently it's a pretty common situation. So again, up, left, right, and down, the Elevon should be all set. And the motor, we'll try that for a second. And the way I do electric motors is I just look at the weight of the airplane. They typically will say motors are good for planes weighing up to 12 ounces or whatever. There should be a little bit of tug when you apply full throttle. That means that you have sufficient power. So I think we're in pretty good shape to fly. Notice also the decals that I put on. I got these decals off of eBay. They were just an oversold item from other models. I think they went on pretty nicely. Even included a decal on the bottom just for some orientation purposes. One other thing to point out is I use these screw down keepers for the control arms. I think that's the best way to adjust it. There's one NIROD control rod here to keep the rods from flexing. Remember that before you glue on the nye rods, you have to thread it onto the music wire and connect it up. You can't glue this in place first, then put in the connecting wire. It just won't bend enough to do that. So I think we're in pretty good shape. It flew, it's the same weight and size as before. So the next step, we get some good weather to go out and give it a test flight at the field. Two more things I wanted to point out. When you cut out the Elevons on back, I obviously cut them from the original sheet. You're going to have to trim a little bit so there's no scraping bonding when you put them in. Also, when you put in the elevators, I've beveled this down 45 degrees so that the elevators can go down without binding. Make sure you do that. And then I just use Scotch tape for the hinges, 2 hinges on the bottom, then 4 hinges on the top. I think that'll work out just fine. Looked pretty nice day out at the field, and so we'll go ahead and give a test flight for this square flyer. We'll make sure the controls work okay. It's up, down, left, right. I think we're in good shape for that. Check the motor. This is literally the first flight with a hand launch. You can see that it just handles well. It's just comfortable to fly, and throttle down a little bit, but then it turns well, it can climb. Just a pleasant airplane to fly, very predictable. And you can see it does slow down well, which is advantageous for any trainer aircraft. You can see at my first landing, it just lands right in front of you. So we had a very good test flight of the square flyer. It literally flew out of my hands. That launch you saw was the maiden flight. That was the very first flight we had. And it needed no trim. I literally needed no trim. So it has plenty of power. It's a good throttle response. You can orientate where the plane is with the tail pretty well. And it's just a comfortable, relaxing flyer. I think it would make a very suitable trainer for anybody learning to fly. And it just went together in a day, flies well, handles well, lands well. Recommend that you try one yourself, and also free plans are available in the description. You can download them from there. We're back from the field. You saw the test flights. The thing flew perfectly just on the first flights. Very comfortable flying the airplane, easy to handle, good keeping track of it in the sky. So really, I'm very pleased with this model. It handles well, it goes together well, and I recommend it for you for a sport flyer or for a trainer, for you or somebody within your club. Good luck.